Welcome to Battletech Legends and Mechs, a short story podcast telling tales from around the Inner Sphere and beyond. Alright folks, get in here and grab a seat. The sooner you settle down, the sooner I can get through this pointless preamble and we can get to the good stuff. So for those of you who stumbled into the classroom accidentally, my name is Marks, and this is tutorial section F1 for the professor's history lessons on the Inner Sphere. Correspondingly, there aren't any full lectures. For those, you should track down wherever Professor Tex is and listen to his talks. They cover everything, and as is the tradition of tutorial sections since time immemorial, my job is to answer questions, provide supplementary information, and basically waste both your and my time until somebody higher up decides that I actually do deserve a tenured position at this institution of higher education. Or moderate education. Well, probably for low education since they let me in, but you get the idea. Someday I will finish my dissertation on why PPCs are actually pretty cool, and I will be out of here, but until then I will run these to the best of my ability. I know your syllabus says that these are mandatory, but your syllabus also says that the Magistracy of Canopus is an Inner Sphere state, so you can't trust anything on there. Sign your name on the sheet that's being passed around, and I promise I will mark you as in attendance from now until the professor ends the course. It'll be our little secret. With that out of the way, for those of you who are actually interested in history lessons covering the Inner Sphere and our neighbors over the last few hundred years, I am happy to serve. I will do my best to pick some minor elements of the professor's lectures and give more detail. Some lectures will be a specific engagement or perhaps the actions of a lesser-known hero in the countless conflicts that have racked the periphery. Maybe I'll pick a particular battle mech and do a deep dive on one specific configuration or one notable pilot. Maybe I'll do a lecture on one of the states that rose and fell too quickly for the professor to bother talking about them in much detail. I don't know, but there is a lot to talk about in the history of the Inner Sphere. And so my goal is to give little tidbits of trivia, small snippets of scenarios, and entertaining engagements that aren't worth a full lecture, or at least haven't been worthy of one yet. Who knows what the future will bring. I have asked several times for the professor's lecture notes, but I have been told that they are classified far beyond the reach of a humble teaching assistant. Personally, I think I've been denied access because the professor doesn't believe in lecture notes and makes everything up on the fly. Oh, on that note, it should be stated that I am but a humble fly in the ointment that is a big academia, and I don't have the wealth of research assistants, PhD students, and laboratory space that the professor draws from, nor do I have his well-deserved budget. I am doing this all by myself, and so my scope is correspondingly far more limited. Let me put that another way. If you want an oration that will teach you stuff that you are sure has been accurately and carefully curated to maintain the highest levels of honesty, integrity, and canonical perfection, go watch or listen to Tex Talks Battletech series of lectures. Seriously, they're amazing, and the professor and his unbelievably talented team deserve every scrap of praise that can be heaped upon them. But if you've already listened to all of those and you still crave more, if you already know about the Royal Black Watch and how they haunted Amaris until the day he died, or that the Taurian Concordate's official-unofficial slogan is hippity-hoppity, get off my property, or if you hear the name Anastasius Vogt and it brings a smile to your face, then these short little seminars might entertain you for a half hour or however long I can keep up this silky smooth dictation. I can't promise the level of accuracy that the professor maintains, but I do my best, and when I screw up, please let me know so I can correct my most egregious mistakes in future sessions. Oh, that reminds me. Every year, a few enterprising clanners get the bright idea to try and bechal me for better grades. Anyone dumb enough to do so is reminded that I can't actually change your grades, nor do I care enough to bother pretending about your honor or glory. You want grades, then you study. If you can't be bothered to study, then 100 tons of walking tank isn't going to fix that problem. There are many problems that an Atlas AS7D can solve, but stupidity is not one of them. Okay, I think that's all the preambles sufficiently ambled, and with a quick glance at the clock, I can see that I still have 25 minutes of class to fill. Does anyone have any questions thus far? I'll repeat the question for the microphone so that the people who are remotely attending the class can hear you, since the university hasn't sprung for more advanced recording equipment just yet. Okay, the question was, why would we bother to be here if you've already said we'll get full grades for attendance? And that is a very good question. I am paid the same pittance whether you stay in the classroom or not, so if you don't care about more information, then you are welcome to leave and I will talk to the people who stay behind. My feelings won't be hurt, I promise. Next question. Oh, that is a good question. The question was, if you missed any of the professor's lectures, which ones do I recommend that you attend first? A damn fine question. Let me answer that by saying everything Professor Tech says is fantastic. But if I had to pick one lecture, then the start of the American Civil War might be among the best things I have ever heard. That and his lecture on the Hunchback should be mandatory for anyone who loves the universe as much as I do. A follow-up on that is what else to listen to if you already listened to everything Tex has put out. Well, that's most of the reason I'm here, honestly. I applied to be his teaching assistant specifically because I love the style and substance of his lectures, and my desire for more outstrips his current ability to produce more. There are great podcasts out there, and I'm happy to recommend them, but they tend to be more focused on mech combat or tactics or whatever, rather than on history and story. And in my heart of hearts, I am a storyteller first and foremost. That stated, the Mech Bay podcast is great. Give them a listen. And Of Mechs and Men are a great book club for Battletech related lore. Good energy from those guys, and they're real entertaining. Can I get an example of what a lecture might look like? Sure. Not a full lecture, granted, since this is only the first tutorial, but let's see if I can come up with something on the fly. My first instinct is to talk about House Orano and the Aurigan Reach and how it became the Aurigan Coalition. But for people who are unfamiliar with the historical simulation, I don't want to bring spoilers into these lectures if I can avoid it. Suffice it to say that my heart belongs to the Reach, and I will talk about it to anyone, at any time, without hesitation. Consider this a warning. How about instead I talk about the story that originally drew me into studying history? Let's talk about the Crescent Hawks and their inception. I can already hear the knowledgeable among you cry, an apocryphal element of history. The records aren't factual, the history has been deleted. Why would I pick this to talk about? But I think it really drives home several interesting points about this crazy universe we all live in. And I'll get to that, I promise. Sometime in early 3028, Jeremiah Youngblood was the security chief of Pacifica, which apparently is also known as Chara 3. No idea why, but I suppose Earth is technically Sol 3, so maybe it makes sense in that context. Whatever. Pacifica is a world that is dangerously close to the Draconis Combine, and therefore had a citadel responsible for both protecting the planet and for training new mech warriors for the Steiner's defense forces. It's an idyllic world, although with a brutally short day-night cycle. Jeremiah Youngblood had a son named Jason who was training to follow in his father's footsteps. By all accounts, Jason was a capable pilot and a savvy businessman at the tender age of 18, and took to his lessons with the enthusiasm only possible to somebody who still believes that they're invulnerable. To be young again. One bright morning, Jason was walking his chameleon through its paces when 4 Jenners blasted through the training ground walls and attacked him. Now, your average Jenner is 35 tons of speedy missile delivery or laser boat, and the chameleon is a respectable 50-tonner that could probably handle 2, maybe even 3 if piloted by a goddamn genius. Unfortunately for our plucky hero, the chameleon he was piloting was loaded for simulated combat only, meaning he was firing angry words and emotional damage, while the Jenners were firing back with actual ammunition that did things like explode. Jason, wisely, turned tail and fled. Now, one might wonder how the Curetans managed to smuggle in an entire planetary invasion without the Steiners noticing. Keeping in mind that this little slice of history is heavily debated, with many official histories from both the Steiner and Draconis sides stating that it never happened, we can make some reasonable hypotheses, whatever. We can make some educated guesses. I suspect that the entire invasion relied on light, fast mechs, lots of Jenners, lots of locusts, a few wasps and stingers. Jason's chameleon was the heaviest thing on the planet for the majority of the invasion, and it's a training mech with 1 large laser, a pair of mediums, and 3 smalls, plus a pair of machine guns. And keep in mind that compared to the waves upon waves of Draconis mechs, it was considered a monster. So, what probably happened is that some Chu-E bribed somebody to find a hole in the sensor coverage and landed a company of scout mechs somewhere in the Pacifica wilderness. And then they just ran straight at the Lyrans. Sure, the Lyran defenses would overpower them if given a chance, but if you're jogging in an unexpected garrison at 90 kilometers per hour in a mech small enough to look like a crumb on the sensor screens, there's a pretty good chance you're putting holes in their mechs before they can power them up. So the Lyrans were caught with their pants down, and the Curetan infantry was all over Pacifica faster than you can say, "Excuse me, honorable warrior, but I believe you dropped your katana on my face." There's just one problem. Sure, the Curetans have destroyed everything with a fusion reactor bigger than a microwave, but that means Jason Youngblood and his chameleon are a serious issue. Jason finds one of his father's friends out in the wilderness, and the two of them manage to reactivate the mech's modest loadout, and then Jason starts cutting a bloody swath through the DCMS on Pacifica. He stomps infantry, he machine guns convoys, he kicks down the door to a jail and releases all the prisoners, and all the while his little rebel force gets bigger and bigger. He adds a commando to his chameleon. He signs up for a little gladiatorial combat in a borrowed Irby, and then kicks his way out of the arena, and now he's up to almost a full lance. He finds a technician to add to his group of malcontents, and then the four of them run around shooting invaders from one side of the planet clear across to the other. At some point, Jason finds an ancient Star League bunker containing an HPG relay and sends out a distress signal to Steiner Command. The Steiners arrive with a dropship loaded up with actual battle mechs instead of the overglorified scouting lance that the Curetans brought, and the invasion is brought to an almost immediate halt. So why is this little slice of history so heavily debated? Well, for one thing, the Steiners wouldn't want to admit that an army that could fit in a school bus with mechs that might reasonably lose a fight to that same school bus would destroy their entire garrison without breaking a sweat. Bad for their public image, bad for the army's morale, just bad news all around, especially when you consider that Youngblood, the saver of Pacifica, almost immediately went mercenary. On the other hand, the Curetans were never very good at admitting they make mistakes. It's dishonorable, apparently. So they weren't about to announce that they lost an entire invasion because they didn't think to bring a single medium mech. Seriously, one Shadowhawk and Jason would have been tossed in a shallow grave along with the rest of the LCAF on the planet. And if you know anything about how good a secession-era war Shadowhawk is, that's saying something. Therefore, we have the Steiners on one hand who want the whole thing swept under the rug because it makes them look really bad, and the Curetans who want exactly the same thing for exactly the same reason. Poof, out of the history book it goes. I still think it's a neat little slice of history, even if it isn't universally accepted as factual. It is true that Jason Youngblood started a mercenary company called the Crescent Hawks, and they served with distinction up until the clan invasion when Jason officially retired to train new mech warriors in a brand spanking new facility on Pacifica. So there you go. A little slice of history that I was introduced to, gods, must have been 30 years ago. I was 9 at the time. It left a mech-sized footprint on my brain. Maybe I'll talk about the Blazing Aces soon. Oh gosh, that's a story and a half. No more questions? Okay, cool. I'll see all of you back here in 2 weeks for our first official lecture, which is going to focus on one particular section of the 3052 Battle for Tukaid. I think I'll probably talk about one of the Jade Falcon battles first, but we'll see how much I can cram into an hour and go from there. Nice to meet all of you. And if any of you have questions, comments, or concerns, fire them off to marx.battletech@gmail.com. That's marx.battletech@gmail.com. I'll do my best to answer all questions in a future lecture. Before I sign off, just a few quick thank yous. First and foremost, thank you to Catalyst Game Labs for their continued incredible work with the Battletech universe. My wallet hates you, but every other part of me loves you. An equally big thank you to the editors, writers, and artists who are involved in keeping these stories alive. Thank you all for giving me hours, days, years of joy. I can only hope I am bringing a small part of that to everyone who is listening. A big thank you to the artist Aaron Hatherhall for the lovely logo on the podcast, and the musician Joel Morelli for the fantastic music you have all heard during this and future episodes. Both are unbelievably talented humans, and it humbles me that you've given me a sliver of that so that I can use it for this silly little podcast. Lastly, a quick thank you to Westwood Studios and the development and design team behind the ancient Crescent Hawks Inception. The game released almost 40 years ago, 38 years plus change. It's abandonware at this point, and I can't in good conscience recommend that anybody track it down and play it. It's ancient and it's weird, but man, is it ever a fascinating little relic. I love it. And, you know, if you like old EGA era video games, maybe check it out. It's certainly something. Class dismissed.